Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu salam ala Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ahlan wa sahlan bikum. Rahmakat Allah alaykum. Salam alaykum rahmatul katulil ikhwani fati fi din. Salamu ala amani taba huda lil ikhwani fati fi Africa, Europa, America, Caribbean, wa kulli makan. To my full-back community, Anjarama Jambe. Alhamdulillah Jam Jamwali. Brothers and sisters, today I'm going to talk about the grievances that has led to the great insurgency that is crippling most of the Sahel region as we know it today, and in particular the Western Corridor region and also in northern Nigeria. As you've been following my program, the Western Corridor and the Eastern Corridor of the Sahel have different dynamics, but we still have some of the same symptoms that has caused this jihad to take place. Now, we have to make the distinction between what is actually jihad and what is actually criminal, which you heard me talk about, but I'm giving you, again, this official declaration about this. A criminal group, even though they may be Muslim, they may even say and even mention Allah's name many times, but they're involved in banditry, brigandage, kidnapping gangs, narco trafficking, a lot of criminal activity, trafficking weapons, whatever the situation may be. That's not jihad. This is actually criminal. The jihad, as we understand it, Islam takes on many aspects, as you heard me talk about before. Jihad, getting up in the morning to make your first prayer, Salat al-Fajr. This is a jihad. Trying to educate the family and keep them up to par as far as their Islamic abilities and understanding and education. This is a jihad. Also, the jihad is a struggle against, as you see this depiction here, when you have your community has been ravished by others, the jihad in order to bring justice and whatnot. This is a jihad, not what we see today, where the media has classified anything and everything, especially with the Fulani, as being criminal. It's not the case. So I wanted to get that clarification out. Okay, yeah. And I want to also get this understanding that the grievances that we're talking about today are well documented. It's just that the media and most even the African media do not cover this. We have some think tanks that do cover this because they try to figure out what is the essence of what's going on in West Africa and the Sahel region in particular. And they don't mention these other factors that I'm going to be talking about today and whatnot. And because I always say, a man doesn't wake up in the morning and just pick up an AK-47 and he just starts to spray the place. That's not the way it is. But according to media, this is what it is. Even the African news services basically point to this direction. They don't say what has happened to cause certain things. They only talk about the aftermath of something. So today I'm going to clear that up, and I want to make sure that we have an understanding of that and whatnot. I'm not trying to say that the Fula community is doing everything right. Nobody can do everything right because we're human beings. We're going to make mistakes, every single day and whatnot. So let's get that understood. So we'll start on this, and I'll get into the butts and notes of this. Now, the shadows of the Sahel is a Fulani perspective, and it gives, again, a breakdown on what has happened. And I drew this up because I want to make sure that we have an understanding about what has happened. And I broke down all these parts to it, and I wrote it down. And so this is something that we can use, because even many people of the fullback community, they don't even understand themselves. They only know what they see on the media, and the media is force feeding one side of a story, and they're not telling the whole side of the story. So this presentation here examines the intensified crisis across West Africa, focusing on the systematic marginalization and target victimization of the Fulani community. It challenges the prevailing media policy narratives that characterize all Fulani resistance as terrorism, arguing instead that the current insurgency is a reactive consequence of deep-seated injustices. This is self-explanatory. Why you see all of these Fulani groups now taking place, even though they may be a criminal group, a bandit, but they have some of the basic premises on why they began. And we get further into that. But we have to understand that the Fulani Jihad that's happening today, outside of the criminal aspect, was born out of these injustices and whatnot. And we have to understand that. As you saw me here depicting here let me get that here again, here. This episode, as you see here, is underreported. What you got here, as our brothers here have now rescued their ladies, their kinfolk from being kidnapped. And you have soldiers a lot of time acting as because they use their state authority to exact this type of thing. Cattle, and also traffic Fulani women. This is a big problem. And as you see here, they got caught. Now the Fulani community that's in the Sahara Desert, right on the edges of the savannah and the Sahel, got these guys and now rescuing their relatives who are sisters. And this is the underreported about this. These soldiers or alleged soldiers who did this, to help to do this, usually what happens is our women are trafficked. They are sent into some area in the Sahara Desert where you can't find them. They are ravished repeatedly. There's one famous movie that you all should, if I get time to give it to you, you should see it. It talks about a case. They changed the name around, but essentially the situation was true. And the trafficking of Fulani women is off the charts. They go in and they take the cattle and they kill the men folk, and then they take the women folk, and then they ravish them for months upon months. They get pregnant and they just disappear. Many others are sent further north and sold as sex slaves. This type of thing is still going on. When our brothers got a hold of these guys here, they executed them, essentially. They got them and executed them. This is the part that's reported, and it shows that says, look, you see how vicious the Fulani is? They killed these 3 soldiers, but the media never told what these guys did. And this is what we're talking about. And hopefully today we'll get a better understanding of this as we go on with my notes here. Now, I have to bring this up because we're Muslims. And we have Muslims and we have non-Muslims alike like to use the wrong terms to describe another brother who's fighting in jihad. There's no such word or a complementary word in the Arabic language that designate this hideous word called jihadist. There's no such thing as that. Subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it clear what actually a jihad represents. We got clarification, great clarification from our Nabi, alayhi salatu wasalam, about what jihad entails. There's no such thing as jihadist. You as a Muslim should never use this term. When a person is fighting in a jihad, he himself, this guy is mujahid. Let the West use these terms. You as Muslim don't use these terms jihadist. You use the term mujahid because you are a Muslim, you speak Arabic language, and you want to, and you also follow the guidance of the Nabi, alayhi salatu wasalam. This is what we know them to be as mujahid. And we should clear that up. And you see here, I gave you an explanation about what this jihadist term is employed by the Western media and policy analysts. It's a corrupted, Western constructed neologism that often carries a connotation and obscures the true intent of the actors involved. Meaning, these brothers I just showed you here they actually went and this is a jihad. They went to go free and find these men who kidnapped their wives, their mothers, and their daughters. They actually at this time became a mujahid because they're actually going after something correct. And now they're struggling to bring their loved ones back because on many instances, they would never see their daughters again. Many times we suspect what has happened after they got pregnant, they're no longer useful. They kill them and bury them in the Sahara Desert. This is what we believe has happened. So now our brothers and sisters, our brothers go frantically after the people who do this. This is jihad. This is a form of jihad. And we have to get that straight. In contrast, the term mujahid, as you heard, and mujahideen is authentic, or historically and spiritually grounded designation. A mujahid is one who engages in jihad, which is the highest and most traditional sense, denotes a strenuous principled struggle and path of righteousness, including the defense of faith, community, justice against oppression. Now you understand why I said to you, don't use what the Western media, the African media is using to designate a Muslim who struggles. Because a Muslim who is going to free his kinfolk, women, okay, and those kidnapped and children who are kidnapped by criminals, this is not a criminal endeavor. So again, and the media will say these are jihadists, and so don't do that. Reject this title. Rejecting the label jihadist, employing the term mujahid. This is presently aims to restore the dignity and original intent associated with mujahid as a defender of community and justice. What is a better defender of justice when your village is hit and you have soldiers, okay, sanctioned by the state? Then you have other rogue element criminal gangs, because this is a lucrative business. They go in, they steal your cattle, and then they turn around and take all the women about the ages 14 to about 30. They send them into the Sahara Desert, where I told you what happened to them. They are ravished, and many of them are sold, and they never see their families again. You go to defend that. You go against that. This is a noble, noble aim, to defend your family, which a man is responsible for, especially in Islam. We're supposed to protect our families and whatnot. It restores the dignity, the intent, and so forth. Now you understand why I use the term, and we should, as Muslims, and under the Sharia, we call mujahid. There's no such thing as jihadist. That is a concoction from the West. It's demeaning, and even though Muslims use it, even Muslims who's working in capacity with the UN or working in a Western think tank, let them use that. But if they come to you with that, you correct them. But you correct them kindly. You don't have to yell and scream at them. You give them the definition, say, brother, you know you're Muslim. You know this is the right term that you call these guys here. And there's a stark difference between those who are mujahid and those who are criminal. And that is quite obvious. The presentation here explores three pillars of the crisis: the discrimination and judicial failure. This here, brothers and sisters, our brothers who are suffering this, and our sisters and our families are suffering this all across the Sahel. Okay, all across the eastern western corridor, we have the same problem. We have systematic discrimination, and then we have judicial failure. Crimes that are committed against the Fulani are rarely ever investigated with vigor, and they rarely ever catch the individuals. This is one of the things, is a catalyst to the problem, particularly in regions like the Ghana and across the Sahel have systematically disenfranchised our communities, which they have. The shadow economy of conflict. This one here, brothers and sisters, as you see I'm talking about, there's money to be made by Nigerian government. There's money to be made by the Ghanaian government and all the governments across West Africa. When you go and to the West and then you say, look, I got a Fulani problem. The West turns around and funds your security forces, your militias, and puts money in the pocket of government officials. And they use this. And how do they start by this? They start by going after a group of people they know are going to fight back, so that way they can scream terrorism. This is what has happened. The shadow economy of government. If you looked at my program, I gave you a chart showing how this money is funneled from Washington, D.C. or from France or whatever, and how it comes into the African state, how the cronies get paid, everybody up the chain gets paid. The security forces get very little of this money, and or they'll get weaponry from the West, and in turn, they give them 35 million. But the airplanes, the helicopters, and sophisticated equipment cost 18 million. You see this dirty economy game? I showed you that in the depiction the other day, where criminal networks profit from kidnapping, sex trafficking, cattle rustling, often operating the security voids left by weak governance. The government knows these things are going on. They do nothing to stop it. That's why the sex trafficking of Fulani women is a big thing. The Russians understand that. The Russians have been going in Burkina Faso, especially in Mali, and they've been having their way by, they're not, I can't accuse them of sex trafficking, but we do know they ravish our women, and they have an insatiable appetite now for Fulani women. So they go in and they raid a village under the aspects, I'm looking for terrorists, and in the process, they get young women between the ages of 14 and 30, and usually they're systematically ravished. This we know. And then others are sold. And this we see this. So now we have this, you can understand the economy, the counterterrorism trap, the critical review of how external military interventions and counterterrorism funds can be inadvertently to exacerbate instability, meaning what they do. Most West African governments now want money from the West. So they go pick on the Fulani. They go after the Fulani herdsmen. They go after the Fula in cities or in small enclaves. They go after them, kill them, arrest their people, and then the Fulani reciprocity kicks in, or then they begin to fight back. They use this as say, oh, we got terrorism here. In Northern Ghana, we got terrorism. Guess what the Fulani doing? They just killed 2 of our soldiers. They report this to Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. then turns back around and they report this to England. And then they turn back around and fund them with millions and millions of dollars. This is what we're talking about here, the counterterrorism trap. Then this situation causes the Fulani people, which we see today, to go in various directions, which we'll cover here shortly, inshallah ta'ala. And this causes a trap, meaning they set the trap. They start to attack the Fulani. They know the Fulani are going jihad. They know some of the young will now leave the Mujahideen and form their own groups here, which become kidnapping groups, becomes brigand groups, become drug trafficking groups. This is what we talk about the counterterrorism trap. They go after the Fulani. They force the Fulani to react. Once they react, they go to Washington or they go to England and say, hey, this is what we got. This is our problem. And this is what happens. Then these groups begin to mutate. A group that started off being a Mujahid group now mutated to a criminal group. And this is what they talk about here and so forth. So I'm giving you the situation here to get this clarification so we can get a better understanding on what this crisis actually entails, brothers and sisters. And I want to show you the incidents of what I was talking about. Okay, where we got it here. Okay, we got here. Well, we're talking about the counterterrorism trap. We have the elders here, the Modibo, maybe Sidi Tiji, and Islamic scholars, imams. They're sitting here talking to the young Fulani boys, young men. These young men here sitting around listening to the elders speak want more to exact a more vicious justice. The elder, the Amin of the village, we call this in Arabic, the Amir, or you want to call it like this, or the chief of the village, he calls a meeting to meet with the young men. He tried to urge them restraint. They already sent out Fulani to go after the men who came and kidnapped all the women and kidnapped the cattle. And sometimes even, and especially those in the Sahara, they kidnap and take their camels as well. Our young men here don't have that. Some of them have young wives and children that were taken, and they want blood. The Modibo, or the Amin of the village, he says, look, we must have restraint. We must go think this over before we do anything and do anything wrong according to the Sharia law. Young man says, I don't care about that. I'm going to go, and he break off. And this is what we have today. And this is where we have the problem. And this is all according to the counter-terrorism trap. See, they sent these people in to go after the Fulani in this region. The Fulani then react. The Modibo, or the Amin of the village, he gathers all the men and the reciprocity from other areas. They come to go look for these men who actually kidnapped. See, actually kidnap our women and our children. Then what happens is they know something's going to happen. The young men want blood. The Amin says, look, we have to give some of this to law enforcement. We have to we have to wait. We have to be patient. I've already sent out a scout team looking for these people. Young men say, hey, man, Modibo, Baba, please, I can't. My wife said, I got children. I may never see them again. And argument kind of ensues inside the village. The elders who please have patience, sabr, please have sabr. And the young man says, no, I don't want to have no sabr. I'm going. And the young men break away from the village and from the Modibo, or the Amin, who's running the village. And then they go out to search for the kidnappers and the security forces. This is what we talk about. In turn, security forces get on the phone and say, hey, look, we got a full-fledged insurgency happening now. See how clever this is? They get a hold of Washington. Washington funnels 35, 40, 45, 50 million to that government in the Sahel to fight the Fulani. Now you understand, brothers and sisters, what has happened. So now we got to this part here where we talk about what has happened. I'm going to go beyond the surface that the media is giving you. I'm going to go more in depth to this. The systematic injustices, the judicial failures, the hidden conflict industry complex, how it profits from, again, instability. Cross-border phenomena, meaning you have a situation where you have criminal groups going back and forth from Niger into Nigeria, and then, or they'll go from Burkina Faso into Mali, Mali into Burkina Faso. It makes it difficult for people to respond. And this is one of the aspects why the true drivers of the current insurgency, from land rights to human trafficking, are being ignored. They rarely ever talk about the farmers killing the Fulani herdsmen. They only talk about when the herdsmen get together and go back there to kill the farmer. They report that. They don't report about the human trafficking. They leave that alone. When some of the human rights, they mention it only offhand occasionally. But when they asked what happened, how did these soldiers here get slaughtered? They said they had taken my family, they had taken my wives and my daughters and my children and so forth. Rarely do they mention this. They only say that the soldiers were slaughtered. It's time to move past the myths and address the root causes of the violence that's tearing communities apart. The countless injustice, the cycle begins with the destruction of livelihoods. The raid comes. The village is raided. This we talked about. They come, take their cattle, and they take the women. And they ravish the women. And they send the women deeper into the Sahara Desert, where there's other human trafficking groups there. And they're well armed and they're supported. They take them there and they hide them because the Sahara is very big. It's not easy to find them. It's not easy. It's not like Sahara, as you heard me talk about. There's valleys, there's sand dunes, there's you got different situations. It's not easy to find somebody. If they want to hide, you can hide. It's not hard, and it's hard to find them. This is what we talk about here. This creates an environment of acute desperation. As the young man, he's married, he had his young daughter and his wife now he know they're going to get ravished. He knows he may never see them again. So he panics in a desperation. Other young men like him get together, as you heard me say, and then they go and form a group. And this is some of the problem. The fundamental rift emerges between the youth and the elders. So you heard me talk about the youth rejects the elders' patience and traditional methods and viewing them as inadequate responses to immediate existential threats their community face. This is a big problem, brothers and sisters. Arguments that are going on in many villages today. That's why we have the bandits and the kidnapping. They broke away from the traditional means of trying to solve a problem. The elders, yes, they many times they themselves have participated in the capture of the soldiers or the criminal gangs, human trafficking gangs, and they were there and they approved of the execution of those criminals, and they freed their women folk and other Fulani women too. You got to remember something. We know that in some of these camps we have Fulani women from Nigeria, we have Fulani women from Chad, we have Fulani women from Niger, from Senegal, from many different parts of the Sahel region, right? And they may run and overtake a camp and they'll find Fulani women from many different countries. Brothers and sisters, this is a serious problem, a very, very serious problem. When our brothers get these guys, they're not kind. And you have to ask yourself a question. As a man, you join a mujahid now, because now this is a jihad. You're looking for your family. You want to rescue your daughters and your wife and the other Fulani women. You go in there and now you capture these guys. How many of us will have the restraint to take them to the police? You know, the police most likely who are involved in this will say, okay, we're gonna put them in court, and they release them. We know these things to happen as well. They have to make a decision. If they leave them alone, these people will come back to the village again and may even do more worse. This is the trap that they are put in. The lacking the oversight and whatnot, the focus shifts from defensive reprisals to opportunity money ventures. Our young men broke away. Now they see opportunity to make money. They watch other Fulani groups. They begin kidnapping. They begin selling drugs. They begin trafficking weapons. Okay, and banditry, become muharaba, trapping people on the roads, stealing their wealth from them as they may be going on vacation, or they're traveling to another part of the state and they're traveling across the road. They go to get them and they take all their money and their jewelry, they take their car, the so forth and so on. These type of things, we have young men doing this, and because now they have lost their moral compass. They're not under the Madiho anymore. They're not under the Amin anymore. They're not under that anymore. They said, look, I don't want to listen to Baba anymore. My livelihood is gone. They took my cattle. They took my wife. They took my children. So they join these gangs and they become criminals themselves. The recruitment. This is another aspect of the situation, as you see here. The analysis of the conflict, the ideology versus opportunity. The power of proven success, as I described, successful banditry and lucrative ransom payments increase the group's capability. Young Fulani men who just lost their families, their wives, and stuff, they haven't found them. They've disappeared now. They've been maybe 1 year, 2 years. They've been grieving because they lost their families. Then they hear the Fulani reciprocity coming from the east. They say, look, man, this is what we're doing. We lost our income from our cattle. Now we're starting to pay everybody back. We start to hit the Tiv. We start to hit these people here. We start to hit the Yoruba. We hit all these people here. We even hit other Fulani, and we make money. These other small group of youth, say in southern Mali, hears that, they form their groups. This is what we're talking about. And this is how this opportunity begins to expand. And this is why we got the explosion, brothers and sisters, that has happened, especially in Nigeria, where you have groups after groups of forming, and they're criminal groups. These are not mujahideen. Then you got the territory overlap and rivals. Now we're getting to the conflicts again, brothers and sisters. The conflict with established groups also guaranteed when a criminal gang expands. The criminal gangs have made a lot of money now. They've gained recruits. They recruited other disenfranchised Fulani men. Now they said, we're going to start taking over territory. Now they run afoul of the Mujahideen. Now you understand some of the differences here. The criminal gangs are looking for the money. Okay? They're looking for financial power. They're looking for things to put money in their pocket. But mainly the financial power. They're not looking to overthrow the government. They don't have the expertise and the Islamic education for that. They want a quick fix. They want money in their pocket. So now they decide to go to a region where you got Mujahideen regulars, namely the main two that we know across the Sahel, the Kitaba Messina, we know as the Messina. You heard me talk about that many times, what happened to the great sultanates from the 1400s to the 1800s. You heard me talk about that many times. This one group took this name. And then you have the Fulani herdsmen, the militias. They run territories. The criminal gangs, even though they're Fulani and their brothers are Mujahideen, they're Fulani, they have conflict. The Messina is not gentle with them as well. The new group we have now in the Northwest, the La Kurawa, these also now have taken over regions and now installed the Sharia law. The Boko Harams of the world, the other offshoots of Boko Haram, the other criminal gangs come into a region where these guys are, there's a gun battle. And they don't tolerate them at all. So as you see me here, I'm breaking it down so you have better understanding. Then you have the ideological governance and criminal disruptors. While some Mujahideen groups may tolerate some smaller criminal activity, they generally view independent bandit gangs as disruptive. These gangs create instability. They do. What happens is when these gangs come to a region, they start robbing and stealing and killing people for ransom, right? They'll get the money and kill them anyway. The Mujahideen don't want extra drama. They know these gangs will attract the West, and they'll also attract the local security forces who are brutal. So they have a choice. If they allow the gangs to keep on going, they're going to bring that trouble to them. So they fight them. And many times these criminal gangs lose out, or they'll tell them to leave because they may be Fulani themselves and say, look, we give you brother, Anjarama to them, say hello to them. Hey, brother, you got to go here. This is our area here. We don't tolerate criminal activity. This is Sharia law. We don't tolerate this here. You must leave. If the gangs come back to fight them, they fight them. And sometimes this has happened and they get basically liquidated because the Mujahideen, these guys from the Messina, are no joke. They've been fighting the Russians. They fought the French. They fought the Americans. So, they're hardened, seasoned veterans. They're not young recruits. See, and this is the difference. The experience wins over the youtheism of the young man. The outcome you describe, what I'm describing, the defeat of the criminal gangs. The government, in a lot of ways, knows what's going on, and the West also knows. They allow these brigand groups and these criminal gang groups to maraud. They know they're going to run afoul of the Fulani Mujahideen. They know that. So they sit back and wait. And they allow these criminal gangs to go into a northwest region. They know the La Kurawa is there. They know the who are under the Messina. They know they're there, and they know there's Fulani herdsmen, militias that are there. They stand back and wait, and they allow them to liquidate these gangs for them. And many instances that's happened. They completely wipe the gangs out. When these gangs are so frenzied, they want money. They say, look, we're going to take over your territory, you like it or not. And they go to fight the Mujahideen, and they lose. And then the government has now won its case in the sense of these particular groups here because the Mujahideen killed them for them. This is another dynamic. The kidnapping, brothers, sisters, the atrocities that help to motivate. This is one of the issues that they don't ever talk about. As you heard me talk about here last couple of weeks, is these atrocities that happen almost weekly to Fulani families across the Sahel, in Mali and especially Burkina Faso. You hear about it sometimes in Niger as well. You hear of it, of course, in northern Nigeria. All of these things here are part and parcel to the problem. The media narrative, the catalyst, the invisible crime, the brutal crimes, the ravishing of women, trafficking of women in the Sahara Desert. I've been over this to show you this is a big catalyst. This, again, the reprisal. This is what's reported by all the African news services. This is what's reported by the West, is the reprisal. But they don't talk about, they just rescued their women folk. See, they don't put that in the newspaper. They only say, look how vicious these Fulani are. They just killed all of these soldiers here. But they don't give you the story that the soldiers had their women, their wives, their mothers, as sex slaves for months. They don't report that. So when they finally find them, they execute them, what we call liquidation. That's what's happened. And then they only focus on that. They don't talk about what happened prior to that. The distortion by isolating reprisal from its cause. Again, as you heard me say, they'll come in and say, what happened? We lost 400 some people, the Fulani herdsmen and the Musino came and killed them. But the media doesn't ask, why did they kill them? Or if they did ask, they said, look, we heard this is what they did. They don't go to the Fulani village who were responsible, or the Mujahideen responsible, or the herdsman group who's responsible for the liquidation of these criminals. They don't go to them. They just listen only to one part of it and they write. The Fulani jihad is very active. The Fulani are very vicious. Fulani are terrorists. Look what they did to these soldiers. This is what we talked about here. And this dynamic exactly leads to the banditry labels. When the media reports the aftermath of a lethal rescue, that rescue, brothers and sisters, see, again, that rescue, that's important. This is what we see. This is what we know. And we see this. We know of this situation that happens many times. They capture these guys here and they execute them. They don't send them back home to their villages. They don't send them to the police station where they'll be released. They don't send them anywhere. They execute them there and they rescue their women folk. See, we have to say what's right here. This here is not the bandits. This is the Mujahideen. They became Mujahideen because now they came here to rescue. They didn't come here to fight against anybody, just to fight somebody. No, they came to rescue their women folk and their children. This is a Mujahid right here. But the media says, no, he's a terrorist. He's a criminal. The guys here, these security forces, they're not criminals. According to the West and to the African media, they're not criminals. But though our Fulani brothers here who have surrounded them, they say these are the real criminals. And it's not fair. It's just not fair and it's wrong. And this is why I'm talking today, again, to make the emphasis about this. I don't know how many people actually get to see this. As you know, what has happened, they have really curtailed my channel quite a bit. So as we go a little bit more in this, I'll be closing here shortly, brothers and sisters. I can't go over this to make the emphasis. The transition to criminality. Since our young men lack the oversight and legitimacy of the traditional leadership, these bands become susceptible to corruption. This is why we have the kidnapping gangs. They're not run by a wise man. They're not run by the medieval or Islamic scholar. These young men have almost, and most have left the religion. And now they're being guided by the devil. And this is a very, very difficult situation. As you see now, this thing is exploding where criminal groups are emerging every single day. The insecurity, again, is misnamed as a surge of jihad or a simple lawlessness. And they don't understand what has happened. The failure of the state and justice vacuum. We talked about this issue as well. The silent catalyst. We talked about against our women. Do you know, brothers and sisters, I can't emphasize this more. The Fulani woman is suffering in the Sahel. When these guys hit these groups, they take the cattle and they take our sisters. And this is a sad appetite that not is being discussed. Our brothers, in many instances, do find their wives and their mothers and their children in the Sahara Desert. They find them because the reciprocity among the Fulani, even some of the Fulani who might have been part of some of these kidnapping gangs, suddenly they see their kinfolk or they know other Fulani. And a Fulani is a cousin to another Fulani. They see that. They feel bad. So they leak the information to somebody. Somebody leaks it out, and suddenly the group that the Fulani herdsmen who have been disaffected by this get the information. They say, look, this is where they are in the Sahara Desert. We have Bedouin, Fulani Bedouin, and we have Tuareg. They will guide them to say, look, I was told there's two palm trees in this region here where there's a lot of, they'll give them some direction. The Bedouin say, okay, I know this area very well. The Bedouin will lead them there. They go there, find them, and execute them. This we do know. And then you free our sisters. But in a lot of cases, they may not never find our Fulani women anymore. They disappear. Some are trafficked into Europe. Others are trafficked into Jazeera Arab. Many others are trafficked across the Sahara Desert, and they put into Saharan villages, and they never see them again. Their wives, who they marry at 20 years old now, maybe have 5 or 6 different children, and she's a sex slave in a village inside the Sahara Desert. And because it's so vast, it's not easy to find everybody. It's just not easy. So now we have this part here, the path, the emergence of the Mujahideen. They have got this mixed up. The emergence of the Mujahideen is a very, very important aspect. 2012, the catalyst. They had a series of assassinations. They had a series of brutal attacks on the Fulani in Mali. They had disenfranchised them. They basically treated them as slaves and whatnot, and said they were nothing more than slaves, even though they've been there and they had Timbuktu. Most of the scholars of Timbuktu were Fulani. Most of the greatest 3 of the 5 greatest scholars of Timbuktu were Fulani. All this now has been forgotten. And they go and they did the unthinkable. Under the guide of the United States, 9/11, the terrorism, they went after the Fulani in central Mali. And they started the jihad. Imam Kofa and the Fulani, tired of the raids by the security forces, tired of their women being taken and ravished, tired of their men being killed, tired of the cattle being trafficked, or either they kill their cattle on sight. And he called for jihad. That's how we came up with the Mujahideen. They called them Asina. That's how it began, brothers and sisters. It didn't begin when Imam Kofa one day wakes up, walks out of his bed, leaves his family, and he goes and picks up AK-47. And 2 days later, he's got thousands upon thousands of fighters. It didn't work like that. It became because of what has happened in the region, as we talked about earlier. And this is all a game. Mali made millions off that by going now reporting, hey, look, here's the Fulani, they're vicious. They're retaliating, they're doing this to us. These people now are fighting us. We didn't do nothing wrong. The West sends money. France, in particular, sent them millions. And then there we go. And again, we have the responses between the young Fulani and our elders Baba, and we, as you see me report that. And we have the conclusion. We are witnessing a cycle of violence fueled by state abandonment, trauma of gender violence, our women being trafficked, deliberate erasure that causes the causes from the public record. The public record doesn't acknowledge all of this ravishing of Fulani women. It doesn't record the women being trafficked into the Sahara Desert. They don't record that. The Fulani insurgency is not an explicit eruption of evil. It didn't start out of just Fulani people waking up in Niger or in Burkina Faso or waking up in Mali. It came because of something happened. It is the predictable violent result of people denied justice for too long until the international community acknowledges the initial crimes against our families and addresses the systematic failure of the state. This cycle will continue to amplify, drawing more young men into the trap that offers only choice between the victim or becoming a combatant. The Fulani youth today, he has very, very limited resources. The education in most times is off limits to him, especially in Ghana and other places. They just won't let us have education. All these type of things. Our brothers, our young brothers decide then they'd rather be a combatant. Many Fulani elders, Baba, they out of their, how can I say, out of their suburb, out of their patience, they ask their community to be patient. And then what happens? A band of ethnic militias aided by security forces, they come and kill Baba, his family, kill everybody just about in it. They take all the women. The young men have been screaming, telling Baba, we must get AK-47s. We must band with our other brothers from the other villages in the Sahara and to fight to prevent, because they just hit Fulani villages over here. Baba makes the mistake at this time because he's a good man. He wants to believe in the goodness. And he says, we have sabr and let's rationalize this before it's too late. And they come and they slaughter everybody. And this is what has happened, brothers and sisters, too many times. So now you have this, and I hope that you analyze what I'm saying. And let me give you some other pictures here. I want to bring home points here. Excuse me here. This is a cycle here again. So this is in an image, a depiction, giving you a short history of how we got to the point where we got, brothers and sisters, persecution and injustice. We have the Fulani grievances, the cycle of violence and resistance. Again, and then the response, the Fulani said, we're tired. The police won't help us. They're part of the problem. The court system is part of the problem. The Fulani Mujahideen activates. And then you have young man, old man, Baba, the Madibo, you have the CDTG, everybody involved in the jihad at this time. Then something happens. Many of our young men move to the right side. They said, look, Baba, we love you, we respect you, but who's going to pay? Who's going to give me money? I lost my cattle, I lost my wife, I lost my children, I have no livelihood. And they band together to the right. And this is what happens here. This is how we got to the point we got to the right, where we have young men who turn to the criminal aspects, and this is how we got to this point. So this is a pictorial to show you how we got to that point, brothers and sisters, and so you can get that understanding. Here we got our women being, again, trafficked. This is so prevalent every day that we speak. Some group of Fulani women, they could be 30, 40, 50, are trafficked. They are arrested by security forces or ethnic gangs dressed as security forces, and they think they're state authorities. They come in, kill some of our men, kill many of our young men, and then they take our sisters like this. Many of the sisters here, they know the stories. They know they're going to be ravished. By the time they bring them to the camp that night, these men, along with other men, plus the sex traffickers, will have ravished most of these women that night. after they've been captured. This is a sorry epitaph, brothers and sisters. It's a sorry epitaph that has to be talked about. And I am of a person is I am not going to sit here and tell my brother who lost like this young, some of the young sisters here, or even some of the older Fulani women. Would you go rescue your wife and your children from these bastards over here? I would. I would. I'm not going to sit here, especially if we have the means to rescue. But if I only got a stick in my hand, I can do nothing. But I have to do something to try to get my family back. And it's a very hard choice in a life when you live in the Sahel as our people are living now. You have a few choices, brothers and sisters. You either live to die, you stay in your village and wait for these security forces and the Russians to come to kill you. They kill you, they take your wife, and your young daughter is 14 years old. She's ravished many times right there on the spot, taken into the Sahara Desert. She stayed there for months upon months, and she's ravished. And then if she's not pregnant, they sell them into other villages somewhere in the Sahara Desert, going out to the east, and the brothers never see their wives again. See, these are serious, serious issues that we have to get clear on. We have the human trafficking. I'm stressing this, brothers and sisters. You see here, I got to stress this. And you have to understand why these soldiers and these militias who do this are being executed. No one is surviving it. They get them, they execute them. This is here a depiction on what happens. This fuels the insurgency. Once they realize that these criminal gangs have killed their women, an insurgency now develops. Out of sheer anger, they band together and they know the ethnic groups who killed and raped Fulani women. So what do? They go to those areas of the Sahara or in the savannah, and they go attack those villages that their men are responsible for. Now the insurgency builds. As the Fulani reciprocity kicks in, they get on the cell phone or they go by word of mouth, and it goes across the Sahel like an echo. The echo, they hit in the wind. You can hear it in the wind. Jihad over here in Mali, and Fulani answer it. This is what we got here, brothers and sisters. This is what we have here. The human trafficking is a serious, serious issue of Fulani women. Okay, a couple more, and then we'll be finished here. We talked about what happens, the radicalization, the criminal enterprise, the kidnapping gangs, what happens, how our young men became where here's another depiction to drive home the point on how this Fulani insurgency and jihad, how it came about and what has happened, how the jihad is mutated into now a radicalization, a criminal enterprises. The two main groups are the Fulani, are the Messina, in the east now, the Laku Raba, and also the Fulani herdsmen, militias. They are staying within the bounds of Mujahideen Fisabilillah. But these other groups, other young men, they didn't want no part of that. They said, hey, man, I'm going to make me a living now, and I'm going to do this. And this is what we have as we start to, you see this, another depiction of this, brothers and sisters. This is a very, very vicious cycle that we have not stopped yet, and we're not going to be able to stop it. And Americans claim that they're going to be able to bring home this situation. Now we have the part here, brothers and sisters. This is part of the insurgency. Our brothers are doing nothing wrong, but according to the media, because they're Fulani, people have the right to go after them. We have security forces and militias, sometimes dressed as security forces. They'll come to a village, and then they'll go to Fulani and they'll take their cattle. This cattle here we use this for meat, free meat, and they'll sell this as bush meat across many areas. Or they'll sell the cattle outright and make tons, thousands and thousands of dollars. It's a lucrative business because the Fulani take care of their cattle a lot. They know that. So they go to wrestle the cattle from the Fulani. The Fulani sits there. They know who these people are. They know what ethnic group they are by listening to them. They know they quiet. They let it go. Sometimes these guys don't even let these guys live. They kill them. So there's no witnesses, and they traffic our cattle. So this is now you start to get a understanding, brothers and sisters, what's happened. And I think we got about the last of it. And this is it. And then I will be closing here. Baba, here in the center here, you see him talking, is in a bad situation. The village lost its women. You see no women in the sight here in the village. You see no women getting milk from the cattle. You see no women getting firewood or getting pieces of brush for the evening meal. You see the men only. They've lost everybody. Their young men lost their wives. Even Baba lost his granddaughters. Now they sit and try to figure out what they're going to do, how they're going to answer, how they're going to go to find their loved ones. The young men sitting around listening to Baba, they will give him audience. They listen. Most do abide by Baba, but a lot of them have not. And they disagree with Baba. They tell Baba, we're sorry, we cannot. I'm going to go rescue my wife. Others agreed. The other young men said, yes, we will do that. They in turn get their machetes, and then weeks down the road, they find access to somebody gives them AK-47s. They go out into the Sahara Desert. Behind us here, what you see here, and they start to look for them. They start hearing rumors that these kidnappers are 30 kilometers over to going to the to latitude, going over to here. You see the moon here, and we go by the latitude. Maybe they say, look, you got the latitude north by northeast. So they're looking at the moon. Okay, they see this here. Excuse me, the sun. They know that, so they look at the sun and say, okay, we go north and to the east. They go out there and they'll find it. Maybe in between sand dunes, they find their loved ones. This is what happens, and they break off. Baba could do nothing. The young men go, they form their groups, and this is what we have today. And now I gave you that understanding of what has happened, brothers and sisters. And I hope I gave you good education today so you can understand what we're doing and what we're trying to do, and so forth and so on. I hope Subhanahu wa Ta'ala blesses us and protects us, because we need protection now. All of us need to keep up our prayers and keep it our remembrance, our dhikr Allah Ta'ala, because even though things happen, you know, the religion of Islam, we're going to be tested. Everything can't be perfect. You cannot. You're going to get tested for your faith. Our Fulani people today are going through a severe education and a severe trauma, a fitna in the Arabic language that is happening with the Fulani in West Africa. We're going through a big one because we led before. Okay, we had led before for many centuries. Now we're back in the situation, and we've been tested again. This time the test is we're not leading. Before, for 400 or more years, 500 years, we were leading. Now we're not leading anymore. We're down here, and everybody's coming after us. This is another tilah, a test in the Arabic language. This is a test, and now we have this situation, and we have to look at it for what it is. And I'm hoping that you weigh my word today, do your research. Please give your prayers, brothers and sisters, to all the Muslims around the world, even our brothers in Sudan. We have many Sudani, and many in Sudan are Fulani too. You know about, I gave you the class on that. We have many Fulani who are Sudani as well, okay? And they have been displaced. Many are sitting in camps with no food. Please give your prayers for Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and give them relief. Prayers is the thing that all of us can do now. This is because we do not have the ways and means, and we have to be very careful when you pick up a weapon to defend yourself. You defend yourself the best way you can. See? But you always have to remember something. Always remember, brothers and sisters, and I will close. Muslims, we have to worry about our niyyah. Means in the intention. When we do things, the intention. What is our intention? If our intention is wrong, we will get rewarded for what we sow, so to speak. If our intention is good, we're rewarded, and we're giving a reward for this. We get ajr for that. See? And when you have a fitna of this sort, You need to pray. It's not easy. I know it's hard. You just had your wife and children trafficked. I know that. And you're not going to be thinking clear. You may have even abandoned prayer out of sorrow because you're so upset because you know what's going to happen to your beautiful wife. It's a heck of a choice. And you have to think about that. They may stop praying, and now the Shayatan comes to them and start to tell them, look, here's what you do. Stop to pray here. Don't worry about that now. You do this another day. You go and get machetes, you get others, and you start to go out there to find them. And you're running with your head cut off, not knowing what's going to happen. Many of our young men did meet a violent death when they tried to rescue their loved ones because they did not listen to Baba and they went out on their own. They did not bother to get a better one. They didn't bother to get approval. They didn't talk to Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Their intention was not, yes, their intention was to free them, but but we are Muslims. We have ways of doing things. No one is going to sit here and say that you have no right to go rescue your wife. But we have to have some patience to a degree. We have to do it right. When we have done it right, the media has said we're wrong. But we can't go by them. We go by what Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says. The angels are writing in our books. When you go to free your wife and children, you get Azure for that because you are responsible for your family. CNN and BBC are not responsible for your family. You don't answer to them. You answer to Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So you answer to them. You don't answer to this BBC or to Western media or to the African media or any others. You don't answer. You answer to Allah. And you'll be asked about that situation in Yom Kippur. So you must do it right. See, I'll leave you with that. Salam alaikum. Rahmatullahi Anjarama.